Jack. We're recording this 2 weeks ahead of Halloween, and I haven't picked out what I'm going to be for Halloween this year. But something that I am sure of is that I will be tuning in to PSC Unscripted on the 30th. And that episode is going to be hosted by me.
I hope you're tuning in because you're going to be hosting it. If you're not tuning in, there's going to be a problem.
I guess tuning in and tuning my brain in to the hosting mindset. And we're going to be speaking with Miriam Graf, who coincidentally happens to be the person we brought on the podcast today.
Not something we planned, but I think it's actually a fun coincidence. In today's episode, we talked with Miriam a lot about her career path, charting your path, about the different things you can be thinking about, how to take some reasonable next steps. But there were some stories in there that I know she's going to get into in the unscripted episode. So think of this as like a good episode, but a teaser for getting some more stories out of Miriam on the 30th.
Look, I'm not going to spoil what's happening on the 30th, but it is spooky that these two things lined up together.
It's totally spooky. Okay, very nice. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Presales Podcast. I'm Jack Cochran, General Manager of Presales Collective, and with me, my fantastic host, as always, Matthew James.
Hey everyone, we had a great episode today talking to Miriam. Jack, anything else we should add?
For those of you who don't know Miriam, I do want to let you know she has been in the industry for a long time. She spent 20 years as an individual contributor. She talks about that a little bit in the episode, moved on to being a pre-sales leader for 10 years after that, various different types of organizations, various sizes, and focuses a lot now on kind of giving back, that helping people with their pre-sales careers, really enjoys that part of it. And towards the end, she actually says, hey, reach out to me, gives out her email address to connect with her. So stick around for that if you are thinking, hey, I want someone I can just talk to about this, what my career path can be in pre-sales. So definitely had a fantastic episode.
Time to hop in after the break.
In a recent episode, we introduced you to Elvance, the pre-sales application designed exclusively for Salesforce customers. Elvance is trusted by global teams to transform their pre-sales journey, capturing the right metrics, improving collaboration, and delivering measurable impact. The result? Smarter processes, more accurate forecasts, and sales engineers who finally have everything they need in one place. Here's how Scott Beer, Global Director of Sales Engineering at Fusion Connect, described it. The Elvance platform has been revolutionary, finding key metrics unknown previously and changing our understanding of the sales process. Fusion Connect is now better with this tool. This is a key application for any sales engineering team. If your sales engineering team is not using this tool, it's not as effective as it can be. Elvance surfaces real KPIs and utilization metrics, demonstrating the impact of pre-sales and equipping leaders with the capacity data to justify additional headcount. If you've heard of Vivint, Home Run, or other pre-sales tools, you need to know about Elvance. With integrations into Jira, Google Calendar, Outlook, Gong, and more, it seamlessly fits into your workflows. But unlike other tools, it's built natively inside Salesforce, where your team already works. Visit elvance.io to learn more. That's elvance.io. Give your sales engineers the platform they deserve, and your business the advantage it needs. Miriam, welcome to the Presales Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I think we had connected back a few months ago earlier in the year, and you're going to be both on the podcast here. You're also going to be on a PSC Unscripted episode coming up very soon.
Yeah, because I love to tell stories.
That's what this is about.
We love to hear them. See you all on Unscripted soon.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. But today we're talking a little bit about career paths, career journey, things like that. To get started, can you just share a little bit about your journey? What drew you to pre-sales and the career path that you started?
I've been doing this a long time. So I fell into pre-sales back when it was an unknown career. People, they didn't know what to call it. Well, we still don't know what to call it.
That's not changed.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. So I was working in corporate systems, my first job out of graduate school, and I was working at the tech center at Owens Corning, and they had a hostile takeover attempt, and a whole bunch of people got laid off, including me. And I responded, believe it or not, to a newspaper ad of a startup looking for a tech trainer for an analytic application being used at Procter & Gamble. It was a one-line job description, build training program. I had no idea what this was, but I applied and I got the job. And I built this whole training program from scratch. I was teaching marketers how to use our software, but really I ended up teaching them how to do data analysis because they used Nielsen data and they didn't know what to do with it. Then they said, well, this is great, but how do I apply this to my actual job? So I started kind of consulting on the side with them. And then that morphed into getting involved in sales at other companies for this same software. At that time, we didn't have separate pre and post sales. So if you sold the deal, you worked the deal. So one of the things I love about my early career is I definitely learned never to promise what you can't deliver, because I was the one delivering it.
You were then on the hook for it.
Yeah. And I know that's a thing in pre-sales. Like, it's very tempting to say yes. You want to say yes if you can, but being honest, super important. Then eventually we split to pre and post sales, and I went to the pre-sales side. And I did that for 20 years. I was an individual contributor. I absolutely loved it. I love the different industries, the fun of presenting, but also the technical. I just think it's the best job in the world. Always loved it. Thought I would do that my whole career. But then I got asked to substitute for my boss while she was on maternity leave. And so I did that leadership stint, and it turns out I loved that too. And I was better at it than I expected I would be. So I spent about 10 years as a pre-sales leader after that, and have helped people go through a lot of different career changes. And so I'm excited to talk about that topic because there's so many things to do in pre-sales. My own journey, I guess I did as a leader. I started with a region, then I went to a national team, and it was mostly enterprise sales for all along. It was data and analytics. This was a BI startup. And then we got purchased by a $3.2 billion ERP company. So I worked in there for a while. And then I moved around different startups to big companies, startups to big companies. I did enterprise. And then later I started a commercial team at a startup. So I've hired all kinds of people, senior as well as new and career folks in the commercial side.
So you've seen the small, the big, been at both, been acquired. That's really interesting. So I guess to look over quite the swath of experience, what kind of lessons would you wish you could have learned earlier?
I think one of the biggest lessons I wish I had learned earlier was people don't know what you want to do unless you tell them. It sounds so obvious, but I think for years I sat there kind of waiting for somebody to notice that I could maybe do more than just deals.
And you're talking about you personally as someone who's enforcing your own career and walking a path, right? We're not even talking about deals. You're talking Miriam has something to give and you want to get somewhere.
Yeah, but I didn't tell anybody these were the things that I could do or that I was interested in doing. I just figured, well, they should know. And so I really learned I'm the one who has to be responsible for my career growth if I want to have some. I mean, I loved what I was doing, so I didn't really care. But then along the way, I realized, gosh, there's a lot of topics that I know that other people don't. We don't have any ongoing education. We should start an ongoing education program. So I just started it. And I'm sure that's part of what led to later me going into a leadership role. But I was sitting there wondering, why isn't anybody doing this? And so it's like, if you see something to do, you just should do it. Or if you see something that you think you could contribute, you should speak up.
That speaking up thing is, I think, a good point, because just thinking back over my career as well, there's so many times where I'm like, oh, I really want to start doing this type of work. But you never have the conversation with anybody. You're just hoping maybe some days that'll come along and then they'll maybe think of me. It's like, well, no one's thinking of you unless you let them know this is the thing I'm interested in doing. Because especially, as you know, being a leader, you don't automatically know what everyone's desire is until you specifically have that conversation with them. And you're like, oh, interesting. You'd rather do consulting instead of being a long-term SC. How can we move you that direction? That conversation won't happen unless you speak up.
Exactly. And also the people who are doing really well, who could do a lot of other things, often as a leader, sadly, we focus on the problem areas and neglect to talk to them about what is the next thing you want to be doing. We should be doing that, of course, but it's also on the person to speak to you about it. Here's another interesting thing. So early on, there was a leadership position I was at SAP for a while after having been acquired. And I was in the healthcare vertical, and a leadership position came up. And I really wasn't ready to be a leader yet, but I got encouraged to put my name in. And so I did. And so the manager said to me, I'm really glad you put your name in. It's not appropriate for you at this time, but now we have you in our head as potential for future spots. And so it's like letting people know so that you come to mind. Now they were thinking of me that way. And the next time a leadership role came up, I was a candidate and got the job.
That's great. What do you think was the difference the first time around versus the second? You said you weren't ready the first time.
I didn't know that much about healthcare vertical yet. So being in that particular role, and also broadness of exposure to different cross-functional activities. I think the more that you can be involved in other things, I mean, I was SE of the Year. I was doing lots of great deals, but I wasn't immersing myself in other related things, getting involved with product, getting involved with marketing and events and different things. And so I think that bigger picture focus is something that you need when you want to move to leadership.
That's so critical, because being the top best SC, like a lot of times we think about the career path of someone who wants to move into pre-sales leadership as well. You first should become the best SC, and then the next obvious step is to become a leader. But those two tasks don't necessarily translate into each other. In fact, I've known people who've been great leaders who actually weren't that great individual contributors, but they could lead a lot better as well.
It's a totally different focus. If you want to be the top SE, you might not really want to be a leader, right? Because that's all about the hero thing. And being a leader is more being in the background and helping everybody else look great.
Talk to me about the hero thing. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're involved on deals and you do something really extraordinary that makes the deal come in, and you get rewarded at club and all these different things. And people say, oh, we couldn't have done this deal without you. And that all feels great. But actually, I have a funny story about this. So I was meeting with a mentor one time, and I was a new leader. I had a team of 6 people, and he was asking me how things are going, what was something interesting that had happened. And I told him about this award I had gotten on a personal contribution. He goes, you're not really a leader yet, because I think he expected me to tell him a story about how I helped my people look great instead of myself look great. And I remember when I shifted to really not caring about any personal glory anymore and caring a lot more about how did all my people do? Are they happy? Are they growing? Are they meeting potential? Are they getting rewarded? And that is such a great, great feeling.
You have to tell us about that shift. When did it happen? And how did you realize that it had happened?
Well, one thing, I had a newer person on my team, and she had been involved in this really great deal. And I was at kickoff, and some customers were there speaking. And so the president of the company we had sold to, the president of my company, myself, and this person were walking down the hall. And the president of that company said, the reason we did this deal is because of this person.
Wow.
That was standing by me, and the look on her face was so great. That just made her year. And of course, that's not the only reason, but, he was trying to talk her up to her management. So that's wonderful. Multiple events like that where I was listening to my own people being congratulated. It's just extremely rewarding. And then also having them say, I can see I'm getting better and I appreciate your input and help.
That's a really powerful thing to point out what it means when a customer points out a team member like that in front of a leader like you. And I think it speaks to exactly that shift that you made, that you really zeroed in on that. And you can even remember it to this day. It sounds like you can probably picture what the carpet looked like in that hallway.
Yeah. It's like I could describe it moving into the give back phase of my career, right? Did it myself for a long time. Now I just care about helping other people love what they do and be great at it.
I don't know about you, Miriam, but I had people who I've led who, as they're progressing in their career, it was very clear they really like being the hero, as you were describing it. They like receiving the accolades, and that's a part of something they wanted to continue carrying. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it means that it's likely not a person I would say, hey, you should manage a team. But I still feel like this person is doing so well, they could do well in other leadership roles, other career paths. To someone who's like, hey, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I don't ever want to give up that I helped someone, I'm getting called out for it, I love the accolades. Great. But what options are available for someone who might not think that direct first-line leadership management is the way to go for them?
So the field is getting so broad right now. There's a lot of good positions for national experts or technical deep dive people, where a generalist SE will take you so far in a deal, and then you need somebody who is a particular expert in a part of the product or a part of the industry or value consulting or whatever area that's needed. So you can be that kind of second line person that gets called in to help out on really big deals or really important deals or just deals that are in your area. And if you like travel and you like being rewarded, that can be really fun. Actually, I have another little story on that. So I had a person who was excellent, very creative, unusual thinker, but had some self-esteem issues, was like a little nervous. She was particularly interested in DBT, and I'd gotten her involved with the TBT local group, and I got her a spot to speak at the DBT conference. And she was really excited about it. And we practiced together and we worked on it. And then she calls me and she says, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I have to back out.
Whoa. Is this what, night before, day of? When did this happen?
I think that week or something. And I said, I'm sorry, but it's really not an option anymore. You asked for the opportunity. We got you the opportunity. Now I need you to do it because we've made a commitment. You can't back out. That's just not okay. You want to practice some more? Let's do another dry run. We can make you comfortable, but you have to do it. And she ended up winning a Partner of the Year award at their conference. And her whole career has gone forward with a lot of DBT activity. She's all over their site and posts about it and stuff. So that also makes me feel good, right? Like I helped her go past that bump of her own fear. And so you were asking about what I wish I'd known earlier. That was one of my other points on that, is a lot of people have fears, but that shouldn't keep you back from action, right? Like if you already knew everything about how to do your job, it would be boring and you'd never grow. So we're always in jobs where we don't know exactly what to do, but that doesn't mean you can't try. You learn by trying, and often you have a success and sometimes you have a failure, but you learn something from it and move on.
I've heard, and I'm sure everyone's heard, stories of people saying they messed up really bad. And when you're under a good leader who's like, well, it's an expensive lesson, but you've learned the lesson and you're going to get better from here on out. And so now you're a more valuable employee because of it. The hard lessons, the things you don't know, like make a mistake and try something and be wrong about it. And then you know for next time is such a valuable thing to grow your career.
Yeah, I mean, when that guy told me at breakfast, oh, you're not a leader yet, like I went home in tears, but he was absolutely right.
Yeah, we kind of glossed over that. The first time I thought like you just took it in your stride and you're like, all right, I'll get it next time. But it sounds like actually that was tough.
I felt terrible. I'm like, okay, I need to shift.
So I guess it was also that you took on that feedback and made some changes, and you then were much more ready the next time, it sounds like, because the second time it came around, you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that can be very true about a lot of things, right? The first time you see something, you're not going to understand everything that's behind it. Maybe you do. Maybe you have a way of understanding that. But I think we as pre-sales people should be ready for like, when is that second time? When's the time you really are proving yourself? I can think of many deals, the first kinds of enterprise deals that we walked into in a vertical where we didn't know what was going on the first time. And then that second time around, that experience helped a lot.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of a job growth, I think a lot of it is just being on the radar of the leadership. The first time they're like, oh, I didn't know she was interested in that. So maybe they would be good for it, or maybe it's just they got to start thinking of you in that way. And that ties to also, people always say, you know, if you want a next job, just start doing it, right? So you see something that needs doing, do it. Like I started that education program, and now people hire a separate person to educate pre-sales staff. I wish we had that.
We've kind of talked about having the audacity to ask for what you want and say the things that you want to. So how do we get there? Like, what's the difference between just working in pre-sales, being an SE, and having a career path?
I think it's, number one, thinking about what you really have a passion for. People say, oh, the only thing you can do is just get promoted and then be a manager. That's just not the case.
Get a bigger and bigger title, and then one day you've got a team.
Yeah. I mean, you can go into product management or product marketing or sales or post-sales or demo engineering. There's just so many different ways to go. So I think the first thing in charting a career path is to think about what you love. Which part of the job do you really find you're passionate about, or, you know, work extra because you really love that thing? And then make sure that your leaders know that. Then they can help you with any gaps that you have, or give you opportunities, maybe cross-functional opportunities that relate to that. If it's just that you love pre-sales and you want to advance, you know, they can give you mentorship opportunity to help somebody new. There's just so many different things. But if you don't think about beyond just, okay, here's the deals and the demos that I'm working and I'm going to do as good a job as I can on those. But what is the next thing, right? Like maybe you learned something special on that last deal that would be important to share with the whole SE team, right? So you could offer to speak about it on a team meeting or write something up that could be, a blog that could be shared or things beyond the day-to-day work. You have to be looking, what would be of a benefit to the group? What would be of a benefit to the company? What would be of a benefit to me in advancing to something else I'm interested in?
An important point of what you were saying there as well around what parts of your job do you enjoy as well, both the inside and the outside. I think it's something that maybe not a lot of pre-sales people realize is that the pre-sales profession, you have to be obviously an expert at what you do, but it requires skill sets from a lot of other full-time work. Like, for example, a customer success manager who's in there making sure the customer's happy, they understand what they purchased, and they're moving towards success. Well, building out that roadmap you're going to hand off to the CSM, like, you know how to do that. You understand a little bit of that piece. You understand a little bit about implementation side if you've had to touch some of that. Maybe running POCs is something you love doing. Well, let's maybe think about some implementation work as a possible path. Maybe it's working with feedback on the product. There's lots of the things that you're required to do to be a good SC that could easily parlay into, well, maybe look at that as a full-time next step.
Yeah. When I was at the big conglomerate company, I was doing a great job and enjoying it, but I kind of like the startup frame of mind. And someone came along and pursued me for a customer success job at a startup. And I thought, well, gosh, I've never done customer success. I have really enjoyed the staying close to existing customers and pre-sales, talking to them about what's changing in the product, that part of it. So I thought, well, what the heck, I'll try it. But this is an example of sort of mistakes. Not mistake, but I tried it. It was fine. I didn't love it, though, the way I love pre-sales. And so at that company, then when the opportunity came up to start a commercial SE team, they asked me if I would do it, and I was thrilled and excited to do that. So, sometimes you look at something that you enjoy and you try it, and doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stay there forever. But it made me a better SE leader because I understood more about the customer success role. And I think that, the other area that would have been cool to me is that I have a passion for always is product. My team is always one of the first to try all the new things in a product and come up with feedback to product management, figure out a way to communicate priorities in the product across the whole SE team. Like, these are all the parts that I love that are beyond working deals. So I would say, again, evaluate for yourself, what's the stuff that you really enjoy doing?
I think you're absolutely right. I've seen so many people come both directions, either SE to those areas or those areas back to being an SE, or both. Like, many people in the same shoes as yourself, Miriam, who SE and they tried out a CSM or they tried out a project management role and they moved back. But what everyone I've talked to who has done that is that exactly what you said, is that it made them better as an SE when they came back. Because this is a role where the more knowledge you have of the way the business works, the better you're going to be strategically thinking about, how do we approach this opportunity? How do we win this deal? Who else can we bring in to collaborate? Or, oh, here's something that worked when I was in this type of a role that we could probably borrow from as a solution consultant.
I think the reason that the SE is the best job in the world is it is the glue that ties together all of these parts of the company to deliver success to a customer in a deal, right? I mean, you have to have the sales part. You have to have the marketing angle. You have to understand the product. You have to know how to actually implement the software successfully, because you're trying to help the customer have a vision and see a new way of working. And to have that vision, you have to understand it. So I just think it's really exciting because there are so many different parts to the job you can enjoy. And presenting, you have to be a good communicator.
What other skills would you point out, I guess, in terms of people who are thinking about career advancement? If they're looking across the things that they do today that they're going well, what are the top things you'd highlight for them to focus on?
Well, first of all, you have to have a mix. You have to have a good soft skills. You have to have good business skills, and you have to have good technical skills. So, I'd look across those. On the soft skills side, I look for two things. Passion. If you don't love your product and aren't passionate about it, why would you expect your customer to? Right? So you have to believe in what you are doing. I think that is number one thing, what I always look for when I'm hiring. And then being a good communicator. That's not just speaking, but listening, especially listening for good discovery. And then writing. It's very important these days too.
Before we get to business acumen, that word passion gets tossed around a lot. And I think it can look very different for different people in different industries. So I know you said you worked in the healthcare vertical. What did that look like for you? What was your passion that you got to bring out when you were doing that?
Well, of course, that's a little more altruistic, right? Like the idea of helping people who are sick, right? And help them get better with. So if it's analyzing results, because I was in data and analytics, looking at trends in cancer research or just anything on how to improve health and improve people's lives. Honestly, like the different industries, there's something interesting in every industry. I think, well, at the time when I was in the healthcare vertical, it was a long time ago, but at that time, healthcare was quite a bit behind some of the other industries in terms of sophistication of data and integration of different systems. So their medical system was different from their accounting system, was different from their scheduling system, was different from. So there were like so many systems and not a lot of people who understood that. And so what was passionate about that for me was helping people, again, see a vision of a more unified platform. This sounds passé now because, everybody's got EMRs that have all this stuff in it, but it was different.
I think your passion definitely comes across there, actually. I mean, when you think about SEs, distributed information sources are never a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, so that whole idea of being able to have all the information about a patient in one place. And so, you go to a new doctor in a different state and they can see what's happened to you before. Like that was all a novelty at the time I was doing that.
And you were going to business acumen next on your list of what matters for career advancement.
Okay, one other soft skill thing, though, is empathy. You've got to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. They can tell if you relate to them, and that makes a huge difference. That's why people who've done the job that you're selling to are often very good in pre-sales. But so, business acumen. The most important thing for that is just thinking about the so what to the listener. Like, I'm telling you about something, why do you care about that? And so if I'm talking about some dumb feature that doesn't relate to anything that you want to do, that's a waste of your time and my time. So I would just say, know your audience, know what their concerns are. It's not that hard these days to find out what are the top concerns of someone who's an insurance agent, someone who's a physician, someone who's a retail VP. I mean, you can look this stuff up if you don't already know. So then you want to speak to the things that they care about and how what you could do could help them. So I'd say that's the number one there.
You're absolutely right. Like the more you understand the industry that you're in, the business you're in, the more it's going to help you, right? There's really not too much learning you can do on that. And especially if you're saying, hey, you know what? I love this. Like for a lot of people, advancing their career is going to be in their industry. Right. I've known people who, for example, I was in MarTech, and a lot of people who came in as SCs are like, hey, marketing technology and advertising technology is a big space. And they were looking and considering other parts to work within that industry and focused on becoming industry experts, understanding everything about the industry more than they were focused on becoming an SC expert, because that's where they wanted their career to go. And so, especially if you're like, hey, if like anyone's like you and they're like, hey, emerging electronic medical records and patient health information, things like that is something that you're passionate about, pursuing the learning as much as you can about it can be a huge boost to your career.
So this is an interesting story. After I had been in that for quite a while, this was when dashboards were coming into play. And so I built a whole series of healthcare dashboards. And then I was presenting to a healthcare leader at a large place and a Gartner analyst. And so I just incorporated all the stuff that people had told me that they need in these dashboards I made. And they said, it's obvious you've been in healthcare a long time. And that was just hilarious because it was a couple years of just listening and learning the key challenges. So this is when I realized, okay, you learn the key challenges in an industry. Okay, you don't have to know the actual process of each little thing, but you know what are the things they care about, and you can learn that. So you don't have to feel like I can't go after that job because it's in an industry I don't know. You can learn it. One thing that my team used to do when we would do like team meetings where we were presenting to each other for practice or whatever, we had these little cards that said, so what? And so if somebody was rambling on about something that didn't matter, they'd hold up this
Hold
card.
up this so what
said,
card.
So what?
That is so incredible.
Just back of the room,
Yeah, back of the room. So what? It's kind of funny.
That's great. I love that.
So anyway, last thing is technical. Well, how could we call that last, right? Often we call that first. But the technical is changing so fast. To say you have to be expert at X, tomorrow it will be Y. So what you have to be expert at is how to learn things quickly and to be interested in continual learning and to be willing to change. A technique that worked great 3 years ago is passé today. So I firmly believe in ongoing education. Like every group I've ever led, we had at least biweekly ongoing education sessions. And it's so tempting always to skip those because you have all this other work to do. But man, you start to get behind and you can't dig out of that hole. You have to dedicate yourself to keep learning the next new thing. I mean, think about where you were 18 months ago with regards to AI. Probably barely knew anything about it. And now I'm sure it's part of your everyday work.
Yeah, always be learning for sure. Love it. Well, I'm looking at the time here and we're almost out of time for this episode. So before we do, there's two things. First, Miriam, if someone wants to connect with you, if they want to maybe tell you that they think you didn't think about something, or if they completely agree with you, either way, how can someone get in touch with you and talk with you about this stuff?
So I love talking with people about their careers and their ideas. So please feel free to reach out to me. You can either email me at migraf3@gmail.com, or I'm, of course, in Presales Collective chat. So through Slack.
Join the Slack.
Yeah, join the Slack or on LinkedIn, all of those ways. And actually, in this past year, I've had a lot of people reaching out to me about careers because I've been on some different panels and things. That's my favorite part right now, is helping people with their career planning. So feel free to reach out. I would love to talk to you.
Well, you heard it here. If you feel like, hey, I'd love to talk to Miriam, I'd love to get some of that advice, reach out. She's definitely welcoming. We'd love to hear it. And last question I have, we talked about a lot, but what's the one final thought you'd leave with someone? Maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not. What's your final kind of piece of advice or thought you want to leave someone with?
Evaluate what you love doing and make sure people know about it.
Perfect. I mean, that's a great note to end on. Miriam, thank you so much. We've had a blast having you on the podcast. Time absolutely flew by. Thanks so much for being here.
I had a great time too. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Presales Podcast by Presales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the Presales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the Presales Podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.